An absolutely massive trade just occurred as former Cy Young winner Corbin Burnes is being shipped away from Milwaukee to the Baltimore Orioles as the defending AL East champs look to go all in on a World Series run in 2024. This trade is an absolute blockbuster. Burnes is one of the best starting pitchers in baseball, and although he only has 1 year of control left before he hits free agency, and he most likely will test the free agent market, the new Orioles ownership is looking to go all in, and as you're seeing highlights of him against the Orioles, they're no longer going to have to worry about that. Burnes slots in as their number one starter without a doubt. Burnes is going to be very important if the Baltimore Orioles want to repeat as division champs in what might be the most difficult division in baseball, which is the AL East. There's also what the Brewers got back in return, which are two top prospects, one who was in the top 100, which at this point most Orioles prospects seem to be up there, and one player who was very hyped for a long time, but hasn't lived up to that potential, but still posts devastating stuff as a pitcher. In this video, we're going to talk about Corbin Burnes, his career, and his impact with the Orioles in 2024, as well as what the Brewers got back in return for the superstar and one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Of course, if you liked the video, it would really mean a lot if you could subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below. It would really help out a lot. It helps my channel grow and gets you a ton of other baseball content, not only from me, but from other awesome baseball content creators out there. Of course, if that's not it for you, you can like or comment on the video and engage with fellow baseball fans as well. Without further ado, let's dive into this blockbuster trade that got February off to a hot start. Corbin Burnes was probably the most exciting rental on the market heading into the 2023-24 MLB offseason. As I had mentioned earlier, he's already a Cy Young Award winner. He has been All-Star in 3 straight seasons, top 10 in Cy Young votings 4 consecutive seasons. He was the Brewers ace for many years, and now teams wanted him. Simply because the Brewers couldn't sign him, they figured might as well maximize their value, and rumors had been swirling for a while. The Orioles were calling, and people really expected them to go all in on pitching at the 2023 trade deadline, looking to go ahead and make a World Series run last year. That didn't happen when they lost to the eventual champions, the Texas Rangers, in the divisional round, but right now they're going all in for 2024 with a very young team and a superstar taking the mound, will most likely be on opening day. After pitching to a disgusting 8.82 ERA across 32 games in his second full season in 2019, Burnes started to make a name for himself in the pandemic-shortened 2020 season. Across 12 games, he pitched to a respectable 2.11 ERA and finished 6th in NL Cy Young voting that year. But 2021 was where he really took off and became a superstar. You can see his stats on the screen now, and it's easy to see why he was the 2021 NL Cy Young Award winner. An 11-5 record with a 2.43 ERA, which led all of the major leagues, a 1.63 FIP, led all the major leagues, a 0.4 home runs per 9 led all the major leagues, and you can look at the same thing for strikeouts per 9, strikeouts to walk ratio. He was leading the major leagues in almost every single category, not just the National League, but the major leagues. He had a very impressive season, and he got rewarded handsomely for that in the form of a nice piece of hardware. You go down the line, and his stats are impressive. I didn't put his whip on this, and that was below 1, which is really hard to do, especially as a starter. He was just a phenomenal pitcher, and although the Brewers didn't win a World Series in 2021 or at any point during his time with the Brewer crew, he still put together an impressive season in 2021. Although he didn't dominate in 2022 exactly like he did in 2021, he still had a very solid season and was one of the best pitchers in baseball with another top 10 finish in the Cy Young race. And despite a little bit of regression in 2023, still very solid numbers that you see on the screen, a 3.39 ERA. Some of the peripherals did suffer a little bit. A 3.81 FIP, 4.02 SIERA is higher than his career average, but that didn't stop him from putting up solid numbers. That 1.069 WHIP is the league leader in the National League last season, so he definitely did a good job of keeping people off the bases. He's a very good starter, and I want to make sure that's crystal clear. Me saying that he had a down 2023 is a very good season for 99% of pitchers, and he had another top 10 Cy Young Award finish to back it up, along with another All-Star nod for the 4th consecutive season. I think many people expected one, if not both, of Corbin Burnes and Dylan Cease to get moved, and the Orioles are a logical landing spot. The rotation isn't super strong. They have a lot of guys who are pretty young and no real superstar on their staff. Kyle Bradish has been good, John Mean has been solid, but they still have a lot of youth in that rotation and a lot of inexperience when it comes to the postseason. Although Burnes hasn't made it super deep in the postseason, he still provides a lot of experience and he's a dominant arm. The Orioles needed starting pitching depth, and this is exactly what they got. We'll evaluate this for both sides later on in the video, but for now let's talk about what the Orioles gave up and what the Brewers got in return for their best pitcher since Greinke and CC Sabathia. Joey Ortiz is a top 100 prospect who, ironically, I just talked about in my MLB Pipeline Top 100 video, which you can check out in that top right corner. He's someone who I think a lot of people expected the Orioles to trade simply because they had a glut of infield talent and there was really no place to play Ortiz. I want to make it clear that he's a good player. He's a top 100 prospect by ESPN and MLB Pipeline for crying out loud. He has a lot of potential and is a very good player who's already made his Major League debut. The reason I say he has no space is because the Orioles have such a glutton of infield talent in their farm system. It's not a knock on Ortiz at all, but more of a testament to how strong the Orioles farm system is. You ask anyone with any prospect knowledge, and they will tell you that the Orioles have way too many infielders, and as most you know, you only have 4 spots to play an infielder because there's 4 infield spots. Throw in a DH and the depth that the Orioles already have, and you really don't have a ton of space when you have 6, 7, 8 guys who are fighting for playing time every day. Might as well capitalize on their value, and that's exactly what they did with Joey Ortiz. Ortiz is a shortstop by trade, but he has the ability to be somewhat of a super utility man. He'll probably play third base so far with the Milwaukee Brewers going forward simply because they have Willy Adames, but this acquisition was geared by the fact that Adames is going to hit free agency next season and might as well go ahead and get his replacement now. I wouldn't be shocked if Ortiz tears it up at the start, that Adames gets flipped at the beginning of the season, but you never know. Adames is a good player and Ortiz has a lot of potential, but if you can stick him at third base and get both bats in the lineup, the Milwaukee Brewers are still fighting for a postseason championship and they want to win the World Series bad. So if they think keeping both is the best course of action for 2024, they're going to do it. He'd also play a little bit of second base, and he's just an all-around good player. He has a above average hit tool. He's increasing his power a ton. Out of New Mexico State, he didn't have a ton of pop, but he's getting more and more as he's grown and developed. His exit velocities are going through the roof. He has decent arm strength, really, really good fielding, so shortstop is where he can stick if he really needs to be. But right now, Joey Ortiz looks like a very solid player going forward, who the Baltimore Orioles are sad they part with, but the Milwaukee Brewers have to be really happy that you're getting someone who can play multiple positions, can fill a void that will most likely be opening starting next season, and someone you can slot into your lineup starting today. He can also play second base, so Bryce Strang's a lefty, for instance. He will very easily slide into that spot if they want to give him a day off and get creative with someone like Jake Bauers potentially getting in the lineup near the bottom. With Rhys Hoskins now playing first base as their new signing, they could be pretty flexible and creative with how they implement this lineup. I think Ortiz provides a lot of defensive value. Again, a very good defender, a plus defender, maybe even a little bit better than plus, and he can play multiple positions and still provide some offensive value. Milwaukee's getting a very good player, and although I do expect him to start closer to the bottom of the lineup to open the season, I expect him to be on the opening day roster, starting on opening day, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him work his way up to maybe the 6-5 hole. Maybe if they get creative, the 2-hole. He's not the fastest guy, but he can provide some good offensive value. So if he starts off hot, I wouldn't be shocked to see them be flexible with where he ends up in the lineup. In addition to Joey Ortiz, the Brewers added a flame-throwing lefty reliever to add to the back end of their bullpen. Former top prospect DL Hall is the second piece headed back to the Milwaukee Brewers, and he has a lot of potential to be a superstar closer at the next level. He had been developed a long time as a starter, which makes sense. He was the first-round pick of the Orioles back in 2017. It's really hard to give up on those guys and not put them in a starting rotation role, but DL Hall is most likely suited for the bullpen, where he has the ability to absolutely dominate players in a single-inning, high-leverage role. The 25-year-old has only pitched in 33 innings at the major league level so far, all of them in relief except for one start that he had in 2022. So he really is mostly moving into this bullpen role where he will end up being, and he's put together solid numbers, 11.5 strikeouts per 9 so far in his career. Definitely nothing to scoff at. He isn't going to be a true strikeout king, but he can put up good strikeout numbers near the top of the guys you see at the back end of a bullpen, guys you want getting holds and saves at the end of games. Now, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Milwaukee Brewers try him out in the rotation, maybe at the back end, just to see what he has. He has started in the minor leagues every season, just hasn't in the major leagues really. So maybe that's what they want, especially after trading someone like Corbin Burnes to give him a shot. But personally, in my opinion, with his pitch mix we'll get to in a second, and his control issues, which a lot of pitchers end up having, and his durability concerns, he hasn't pitched a ton of innings in the minor leagues. I think this is a perfect opportunity for him to be a lefty option in late games and getting the Brewers wins when they're trying to make a postseason push for a World Series in what could be a very interesting but also very weak NL Central in 2024. As I mentioned, Hall was a former top prospect, top 5 in the Orioles system way back in 2022. He's met most prospect thresholds just based on time already in the major leagues, not necessarily innings, but time. But he has a very good 4-pitch mix, a slider, curveball, and changeup that have all been graded above average, and his fastball has routinely hit 101 miles an hour, so that potential to be a very good pitcher is there. 3 really solid pitches, a plus fastball that's probably even a little bit better, and it just comes down to control. He does walk a ton of guys, but if he can get that control in a little bit, he could be a serviceable back-end starter, and if he doesn't, he will be a very, very good reliever that is going to be a reliable lefty option for a team in Milwaukee that already has a bunch of righties in Devin Williams, Joel Pamps, and Trevor McGill at the back end of their bullpen. He will be a very good lefty option for them going into late innings. Let's go ahead now and give grades to each side of this deal and see how both teams ended up. For the Orioles, this is very easily an A+. I think a lot of people really wanted them to go all in at the 2023 trade deadline, get a starting pitcher, and make that postseason push with a very young team with a lot of assets that don't have space at the major league level who are going to be there sooner rather than later. That didn't happen, but they're finally making that push under new ownership, which Oriole fans are very happy about, and it looks like Corbin Burnes is going to be that first piece towards a championship. Baltimore fans should be very happy about this. They give up Joey Ortiz, who there was no space for him to really play in Baltimore. As I already mentioned, you have a ton of major league talent already at the level who are very young in Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, Ryan Mountcastle. The list goes on. And with a lot of up-and-coming prospects like Jackson Holliday and Kobe Mayo who are going to fill up infield spots, and you just don't have space to play everyone that you really, truly want to. Ortiz was a casualty of that, and to get a superstar pitcher, even if it's only for a year, is a huge return. For DL Hall, he was someone who had a lot of potential, but at 25, maybe a change of scenery is what works best for him. If he ends up being really great in Milwaukee, I can't necessarily fault the Orioles for trading him, but it is going to be something that isn't going to be looked upon fondly by Orioles fans. With that being said, I don't foresee him being a starting pitcher. I think he is best suited to be a bullpen guy, and that lessens the pain a little bit if he does end up being a reliable late innings guy. They tend to be very volatile, not last super long, so I think this is a very good deal for the Baltimore Orioles, which is why I give it an A+. Corbin Burnes is going to be a superstar. He's going to anchor a rotation with a lot of young guys, a couple up-and-coming guys, even though they have a lot of prospect depth in their position players. They do have some good pitchers who could very use that experience. So I think the addition of Corbin Burnes is going to be a very good thing for the Baltimore Orioles. For the Milwaukee Brewers, I'm going to have to give them a flat C. I don't love this trade for them. I think it was a smart move to go ahead and get someone who could replace Willy Adames after next season, as Adames will be hitting free agency, and you would love to have a shortstop, and getting a good defensive shortstop is hugely valuable. It is, in my opinion, the second most important defensive position behind catcher. So to get someone who can provide some offensive value, but also be a plus defender is going to be huge for them in the future. But I just don't love the return they got in exchange for a year of Corbin Burnes. It feels very light. As I mentioned, I don't see DL Hall sticking in the rotation. I see him as a bullpen guy. And though he could be a good bullpen piece, it just doesn't excite me. It's not what I want in exchange for a year of a superstar. We've seen huge deals for rentals, and we just haven't seen it here. We don't see a truly huge name that's going to make a big impact like Corbin Burnes will. I don't think this is a sum of the parts kind of deal here. I think this is these two pieces plus a competitive balance pick in the 2024 MLB Draft, which I haven't really touched on because they tend to be kind of throw-ins in deals. But it is important to note that the Milwaukee Brewers also got the 34th pick in the 2024 MLB Draft. That seems high, but these picks get traded all the time. And also some good players have come out of them, such as Gunnar Henderson. In this instance, I don't expect this to be a huge deal breaker, but we'll see exactly who the Milwaukee Brewers get with that pick. Again, Ortiz, a good player. I don't see him being a superstar. He'll be a solid shortstop for a while. DL Hall could be a very good bullpen piece to come, but in terms of the value that you're getting for a former Cy Young Award winner, someone who finished top 10 Cy Young in 4 straight seasons, I just don't see it. I think you can get a ton of value from him, and maybe it's because the asking price of Dylan Cease was so high, according to a lot of executives in MLB, that this has just happened to be take what you can get right now. I don't know. I don't hate this trade completely. That's why they don't get a lower grade, but I do think the Milwaukee Brewers could have done a little bit better with this deal and potentially gotten another piece, or maybe someone a little bit higher up on prospect rankings, or someone who could have filled out an infield that, again, you have Jake Bauers on your bench right now. If you're Milwaukee, do you love that? I don't really. I mean, it's fine if you're a rebuilding team like Oakland, but if I'm Milwaukee, I'm not excited about that. Maybe you could have gotten another piece there. That's just my personal opinion, but I think both teams are going to end up content with this. But if it comes to the postseason and the Milwaukee Brewers are in a wild card game and they need a starting pitcher, they're not going to have Corbin Burnes to call on, and that could cost them hugely in a chance to win a World Series. That's the whole point of baseball, is to win World Series, and they're playing a little bit more of a long game. 6 user control for DL Hall and Joey Ortiz compared to 1 for Burnes, but sometimes you got to go all in and not just prepare for the future. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you sticking around this long. There's going to be 2 videos on your screen, one in the top left, one in the top right. Hit those if you're interested. And the baseball right there, or the link in the description to subscribe to the channel. Again, it really, really helps out a lot. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video.